Hey, what's up, everybody? This is KG from Jaw 7. Welcome to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking with a very special guest. He's no stranger to the podcast, and by popular demand, everyone wanted him back. And we have Michael Doñas, aka Billy, from the Pokemon TCG of RGV. We had this past weekend, I want to say, we had the Pokemon RGV regionals in Sacramento, and Billy did very well by making day two, and we have him here today. So, Billy, thank you for being here with us today.
No problem.
And he's no stranger to the podcast. He's always likes to be up here and definitely give out his input and his feedback. And today he's going to talk about his trip and his pretty much his day two and his deck list and why he picked it and his matchups. Okay, so Billy, just tell us real quickly, pretty much how was the trip to California? Pretty much overall, the trip itself.
The trip overall was pretty good. The weather was pretty. The first day and a half was kind of miserable. It was cold and rainy, but after, I don't know, past 11 a.m. on the first day of the tournament, the sun came out and it was just kind of nice and chilly for the most of the day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, not hot and humid. Really nice weather to be walking around, and we did a lot of walking.
Oh, okay. And how was the event itself? Was it run smoothly? Was there any hiccups? How was the space, the venue, the vendors?
I feel like the space was a little bit bigger than last year. It could have been. It was the same hall.
Okay.
I think there was like additional space dedicated to the event, which is really nice. So it was pretty spacious. Yeah, of course, you had the vendors off to the far right, and you had the ECG hive and all that stuff set up. So it was pretty well thought out.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing that maybe was a little bit awkward was the prizing wall was on the opposite side of the venue from like the side event tickets. But for those who did do side events, they kind of had to wait in line on the other side of the hall, which is kind of a mess on that last day. But I didn't get to really play that really because I was in the tournament. But overall, the venue was run really well. The event was run really well. There was a little bit of the downtime between rounds, like there always is, but that's just Pokemon.
Right, and with what, 1,700 people there? I mean, that's just...
Yeah, just north of 1,700 masters, plus I think total is like 2,400, including all divisions, plus EGC and Go. So it was a pretty big event. The one thing that was really kind of annoying was on the first day, to let everybody into the venue. I guess doors were supposed to open a little bit earlier. So we were trying to kind of getting rushed in at the end there to make it to our seats for round one, which is a little bit not great, but if you didn't check in the day before, you actually had a shorter line to get in than those of us who already checked in, which was annoying too as well. But of course, they held the round one pairings for us to get to our seats, so it wasn't that big of a deal.
Oh, okay, I see. And pretty much from there on, it was just kind of just smooth sailing, huh? After round one, like it just picked up.
Yeah, like I said, there was a little bit of downtime between rounds, but I wouldn't say any more than we've been used to the last couple of years. Maybe like 20, 25 minutes. As we got to the end of day one, especially like round 6 and 7, those took a lot longer than the previous rounds, but if you could see the judges and you could see the amount of appeals to head judges happening at the end of rounds, it's no secret to why those rounds took a little bit longer.
Right, especially that I'm sure there was a lot of first timers at the regionals, for Pokemon, and and some of the vets too, So I can only imagine. But nevertheless, obviously you did really well. What was your overall record for the tournament, especially that you made day two?
I ended the tournament with 7 wins, 3 losses, and 2 ties.
Okay, cool. And then I know the community was really interested in knowing, especially some of the, 1 or 2 year veterans. But to my understanding, they changed the format a little bit, right? Before, back in the day, or even a year ago, there was 9 rounds, or like day 1 was 9 rounds, and then Pokemon recently changed it, right, to day 1 being 8 rounds. Do you know the reasoning behind that, or what was the rationale?
Yeah, so 9 rounds still technically exist. We just need to hit the threshold for the number of players. So I think it's like a little bit over 2,000 players will guarantee the 9th round.
Okay.
But all the tournaments have been capped just south of that. So since we're not hitting that 2,000 plus player threshold, we're playing 1 less round.
Oh, okay.
I think that was done a little bit just to save time on tournament. Like we're out by like 6 or 7 now, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
Um, but again, like if we did have that larger number, which I'm sure we'll hit it like at NEIC or San Antonio, we probably will have that ninth round.
True. Now, for those of you out there that are kind of new to the scene or want to get into the competitive for regionals or ICs for that matter, please understand that when you go to a different location, there is a time change. So somebody like Billy and Alejandra that went to California, there was actually, you were like 2 hours behind us, right? Pretty much like 2 hours behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if you go to Florida, you're 2 hours ahead. So how's that time difference for you? I mean, not much, right? Not really a big deal.
Well, I already wake up pretty early because of like work and stuff. So
Yeah.
all 3 days I was there, I was up by like 5:30 at the latest. Which is kind of unfortunate because like the coffee shops don't open until 7 or 6:30. So I'd have to wait to be able to get my fix there. But being up early wasn't that big of an issue. I would just get tired really, really early. So like by 10 p.m. I was already like done, ready to go to sleep on that first day, where normally I would stay up to like 1 or 2 just thinking about the deck and re-sleeving, that sort of thing. But because of the time change, I was like, I'm out of it. I just want to go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go and touch the first part of the episode. And Billy did mention his deck list. So speaking of decks or deck lists, I do have Billy's list up here. We're gonna go ahead and pull it up. I believe, yeah, it's right there. So Billy decided to play the tournament at Sacramento with Charizard, a classic choice, but this version, I believe, has the Dusknoir build in it. So Billy, I have the list in front of me, and I'm sure you have yours memorized. So kind of talk to me about your deck selection and why did you pick Charizard for that weekend?
Oh yeah, going into the tournament, I kind of suspected Lugia will be on the downswing just because Miraidon got some new tools right in the Pikachu.
Yeah.
The Pikachu EX, and just see that deck just got way better as we saw in the finals, right? So I kind of expected Lugia to be on the downswing, and with LAIC last week, we saw that Regidrago took like half the top spots in top 8, and we saw a little bit less Raging Bolt. So I felt like Charizard had a favorable Raging Bolt matchup, it has a favorable Miraidon matchup. Lost Box, which was, also has the Pikachu X now to play with. Charizard historically has a pretty decent Lost Box matchup if you don't get like Greninja super early, so that's kind of why I went with Charizard. I was between like this or maybe some like weird Hydreigon build, but after kind of thinking through Hydreigon, I realized that it's not ready to be cooked yet. So I decided to go with Charizard, old reliable.
Yeah, and Zard's just such a good deck overall. Big HP, pretty much has a built-in strong ability to, built-in catch-up mechanic for prize trade and all that. And so it's just such a great deck. So excellent deck choice. And looking at your list, nothing too. I mean, I don't remember the name of the player, but this list is from somebody from LIC, right? Or is this deck selection?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is 59 of the 60 cards that I believe Jackson Ford is their name, who got top 8 at LAIC with. All I did was drop Temple of Sinnoh for a mana fee, just because like I said, I wasn't really expecting Lugia to show up at all.
Okay.
And you kind of need mana fee currently with, Kyurem and Greninjas and all that sort of thing running around. So
right.
I decided to drop for that mana fee.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Well, don't blame you for that one. Manaphy is such a good card to have and all reliable. In fact, yeah. So looking at your list, pretty standard for the most part that you decided. Tell me about Secret Box, because me being an older Zard player, I'm kind of just used to the whole Prime Catcher. But how did Secret Box fare for you in this case?
Secret Box really lets you really cut back on the number of Arvins that you need in the deck. So you'll see this deck only plays 2 Arvin.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
Yeah. So finding Secret Box is actually kind of, I don't want to call it difficult, because there's times where you just open the 1 Arvin, you find Secret Box, and Secret Box guarantees you, Coffin, Forest Seal Stone, your Stadium, and then a second Arvin for the next turn. So it's really just like a consistency card. Whereas Prime Catcher is kind of like a I don't want to call it a win more just because Prime Catcher is so strong, but you're already taking one-hit knockouts for the most part with Charizard, with the Dusknoir and the Prime or Radiant Charizard plus Counter Catcher. So you don't always need to have the Prime Catcher, and I know like Unfair Stamp has also kind of fallen out of favor because of Fezandipity and Ogerpon's being able to draw cards.
Yes.
Cards. Having the Secret Box just kind of gives you that extra consistency, where you don't have to rely so much on like turn one Rotom, for a Steel Stone for a double Poffin. So I really liked it. There's only like maybe one round where I kind of wish I had the Prime Catcher, but for the most part, Secret Box was able to get me what I wanted a majority of the time.
Oh, okay. What about Thornton? What about Thornton? Talk to me about Thornton. Why Thornton, or what exactly does that help you in a certain matchup? Or
yeah, Thornton has become super important as Dusknoir has become more prevalent. Your opponent just being able to go like pop Dusknoir, knock out your active Charmander, or like pop Dusknoir, counter catcher your bench Charmander, and kind of wiping you off the board like that has gotten really easy, especially now that like Lost Box also has the option for Greninja, as does the Palkia decks, right? They can just wipe your Charmanders off the field, or even Pidgey specifically is targeted a bunch of the time. So having the Thornton in there just lets you recover those Pokemon and lets you kind of plan ahead for that.
Oh, okay.
So like, yeah, there are turns where I was like, I'm pretty sure my Pidgey's dying. I know I can guarantee Thornton with the Secret Box or with Lumineon. So I'm okay with, letting this Pidgey go down to set up my other Charmanders or my Duskulls or whatever.
Oh, okay. That's true. That does make sense. I know in Alejandra's interview, she got caught off guard because she had played one of them, had a Zard, and believe it or not, Joel's favorite card, the tree. And that's pretty busted. So, but yeah, definitely understand Thornton now for at least me or for the viewers out there. So that does make sense. I do see sometimes games that just wipe your board, and Thornton gives you that chance. So especially, yeah.
When we talk about matchups, we can kind of talk about how Thornton came into play in a couple of those as well.
Cool. All right. Yeah, so I'm assuming the Jamming Tower for those pesky Bravia Charms for Raging Bolt and stuff, or for Seal Stone, stuff like that. Collapse Stadium, get rid of some potential Rotoms or Luminium plays. And Radiant Zard, as always, 7 prize game. But yeah, looks pretty standard. Turo, good card to have, and standard 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Puffins, 2 Nest Balls, 2 Counter Catcher, 2 Bosses, 2 Super Rods. Fire Energy has always been 5, right? 5, not 6. It's always been 5. Seems like it. Yeah, 2 Super Rods. So, yeah, so a pretty standard list for the most part with, of course, the Nor build and the Secret Box and everything else. So, yeah, okay. So we'll go ahead and put this list away now, and we'll get out Billy's matchups. Kind of did it backwards, but that's fine. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and Billy's gonna talk through us about day 1 into day 2. So day 1, talk to us about round 1, round 2. Jay and Roy. So how are those?
Yeah. So my round 1 opponent, Jay, he was a Pokedad, really cool guy. I got to talk to about how his kids are doing in the leaderboard chase in the junior senior division. So they've been doing pretty well. So he's just kind of playing to kill time, but he actually came in with Cloth and the baby Petra deck.
Oh.
That matchup was a pretty quick 2-0, but there were some, like, I don't want to call them Sophie's choices of, like, what do I need to do to not lose turn 1. So, like, game 1 was kind of standard. I just went chases Squawkabilly, chases Lumineon, set up double Zard, Pidgeot, and, like, from there I just can't lose. Whereas game 2 kind of went down like I started Rotom Pass, and they whiffed the donk, and then I had to like decide. I had both stadiums in my hand. Like, do I collapse Stadium so I don't lose to Hisuian Sneasel plus Petulant, or do I Jamming Tower to not lose to Forest Seal Stone, and then kind of hope I just draw out of the dead draw. So I went with the Jamming Tower play. My opponent only had 3 cards in hand. I was like, well, if they had Sneasel the turn before, I would have lost already. So likely, the only card in hand that's playable is the Forest Seal Stone. and I just happened to be right, and I was able to eventually draw out of it. Got into Secret Box, got double pop in, and set up from there. So it was a really interesting matchup, but Zard typically has the advantage against Cloth, I feel, even though they may have the Electrode, just not currently enough in the matchup.
Okay. Yeah, totally agree in that one. So pretty standard win there, and you went 2-0. What about Roy's matchup?
Yeah, that was Terapagos Palkia.
Okay.
And that was also a pretty quick 2-0. I just kind of was able to get to Dusclops, put him at 240 with the Defiant Span, or pop my Dusclops, Defiant Span my Charizard, take a knockout. And from there, I'm just trading 2 for 2. And since I initiated the 2-prize race to their 1, I'll just end up on top both games.
Okay, cool. That almost sounds like, I mean, the way you describe it sounds like you're playing Miraidon but Zard version, just,
It's kind of how it feels like sometimes, actually, yeah.
Right, and just like I told Alejandro, and this for all the viewers, remember, what you hear from Billy or anyone, these are experienced players, so what Billy is saying, just remember that you do have to practice proper sequencing, because what you hear, it's like, wow, this sounds like it's easy, but then when you try to sequence it, and anyone can tell you, if you make a misshape or a misplay, then you really won't be able to do exactly what they're saying, so practice makes perfect, pretty much, just so
and with decks like Charizard, right, like you have Coffin, and you're like, oh, I want to guarantee Charizard and Pidgey and all these different things, but you kind of have to prioritize that in the sequencing. You kind of knowing like, okay, what can my opponent do in turn 2 and 3 that'll set me back, and kind of choosing your best play from there. So like, I knew that likely my Charmander was not going to go down, so I was able to get Pidgey Duskull off the first Poffin, right? Set me up for those later plays, but or other players might just go only grab double Charmander to ensure Charizard. I was okay with maybe whiffing in that turn, but getting ahead later.
Definitely, yeah. No, totally agree. Okay, so moving on to round 3. Seems like you did drop a game against JC Pierre.
Yes. This was a second Terapagos Palkia deck.
Okay.
Game 1 went pretty favorably in my direction. But I believe game 2... Yeah, it was game 2 where I prized both Manaphy and Thornton. So my Charmanders just got Greninja'd back-to-back turns, so I lost 4 Charmanders over 2 turns. And I really wasn't able to kind of get back into the game after that. And then game 3, I misplayed a little bit. I wasn't respecting Palkia, and I didn't see Thornton in the game 1 and game 2, so I attacked with Pidgeot. Not expecting my Pidgeot to be going down from an attack the next turn, because Terapagos can only hit 240 and they don't play Dusknoir.
Right.
But they were able to play Thornton, get the Palkia into play, get a full bench, and knock out my Pidgeot.
Ooh.
And from there, I was able to kind of recover, but at the end of the game, I was down to my last prize, and I just couldn't close it out.
Interesting. So pretty much it was a Palkia Terapagos, but he Greninja'd you and used Palkia against you. It almost sounds like a Palkia Dusknoir kind of build too.
Yeah, it was basically a Palkia deck without Dusknoir in it.
Right, yeah. So, yeah.
Actually, it's kind of, if I had to like describe it, it was more like old Palkia Inteleon.
Yeah.
From last. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it kind of sounds like. That's crazy, and I'm seeing Terapagos in a bunch of these builds, especially from I saw a Cloth with Terapagos in one of the lists. I'm like, what? Like, that's crazy. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah. So cool.
And my round 3 opponent also played like Trumpet and Energy Switch, so those are things I had to keep track of that I wouldn't normally think about.
Right.
That was, yeah.
Wow, crazy. So yeah, so unfortunately, just couldn't close it out, and just couldn't get that dub on that one. So round 4, Alexander, Andres.
Yeah. Round 4 was a Lugia, and actually I was kind of afraid going into this matchup, just because they were 3-1 at the time, and I kind of just dropped all the Lugia techs for the deck. Was really only the Sinnoh. But I was fortunately able to win the matchup.
Okay.
My opponent did get to go first, but I did get to knock out their Archeops turn 2. So they were never able to get to that one-shot potential with Chinchino game 1. And from there, we'll just kind of like chase Archeops and then just close it out with Radiant Zard and Charizard.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas game two, my opponent just had a slow start. And I was able just to pop Dust Clops and counter catcher their only Lugia, and from there the game was basically over because I was able to set up Pidgeot. And from at that point, I can just chase whatever Lugia's hit play. So they kind of scooped it up, and we went to an early lunch.
Wow. So it seems like you didn't get to experience legacy energy.
Yeah, no.
Those things are always annoying.
Yeah. Like I said, like they attacked Lugia game one and had to commit the energy to attack for that turn, so I was able to chase Archeops without having to worry about Chinchino. So I was really lucky at that point that they had to do that. But their hand really didn't allow them to kind of extend like they normally would.
Right, and I'm just I mean, it's too late now, but I'm very curious if Alexander's build was like 4 Lugia Vs or 3, because I tried 3 and then I did 4 Lugia Vs, and it just feels so much better because like you said, like he had 1. I mean, in most games I get 2, so just something food for thought. So okay, cool. Early lunch, and what did you have for lunch?
I went over to 7-Eleven again, like I did last year. I picked up a slice of pizza. They didn't have any barbecue chicken like they did last year, but that's okay.
All right. So round 5, going against Matthew Ricotta. Ricotta?
Yeah, this was my second loss of the tournament. Actually lost to Miraidon, and I was salty about it after losing to Miraidon, just because Miraidon's such a favorable matchup.
Right.
Yeah, so like game 1, regular Charizard stuff, I got set up turn 2. Just we're trading 2 for 2, and I'm just ahead, right? That's just kind of how Charizard works. But they got the first amp, and then I just responded with Zard and set up a second Zard, and I just couldn't lose from that point. That was game 1. Game 2, I think I had to give up 2 prizes early. It wasn't to an amp, but I think it was a Rotom. Just got Miraidon, and then I got amped, and then from there I couldn't respond because I lost my Pidgeot at that point. So I lost game 2. And then game 3, I got to go second. Pretty favorable matchup going second. I was able to establish Charizard. And at the end of the game, really, we had like maybe 2 or 3 minutes left. We were down to our last 2 prizes. I still had triple rare candy available to me because I didn't get to establish Pidgeot. Opponent took a knockout. I used Pheasantipity, draw 3, and if I just hit Ultra Ball or Charizard or Arven or Secret Box, I just kind of win the game. Triple candy and just set up a second Zard. But I whiffed all of those things and ended up having to Iono all rare candy to the bottom of my deck, or you can't draw them off the Iono. And I hope my opponent whiffs, and they did not. So that was an unfortunate loss.
Wow. Yeah, that is that. So, I mean, it's not every day Miraidon like takes a dub against Zard. So, I mean, he didn't. It's all right. He went 4-3 drops. So, but that's just unfortunate. So, wow. And I'm assuming, I'm sure his build was kind of very similar to the finals or the winning build. So.
Yeah, it was pretty similar. Of course, the inclusion of Magneton and Raichu V again.
Right.
Makes the Charizard matchup a little bit more even than like heavily favored like it used to be for Charizard. Just because they can always just like hit the delete button with the Magneton, which is how they won game 2. They just kind of went like, knock out your Pidgeot, knock out my Zard. And I was like, well,
yeah,
didn't expect that one. Whereas in game 3 is just unfortunate that I whiffed off of the Pheasantipity, but it happens.
Right, yeah, and I'm currently I'm Miraidon. I like Miraidon, and then I'm testing that one. And it's kind of funny because it has like one counter catcher, and I'm like, why is this there? But then when you do that Magneton play, like, oh, okay, this is why. Like this is pretty cool to do it, you know.
Yeah.
And then because it has that Raichu like line of play, then like your bear play becomes much more powerful to close out games at the end, like to chase. Like so, yeah, it's just very, 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 very good. So I feel like Miraidon has a bigger skill cap now because like there's more line of plays rather than just going for 2 prizes. Like with Raikou like putting more damage out, like there's some interesting stuff you can do. So I do like it a lot. But
actually before I left for my flight, I have a stack of cards here that I keep on my desk.
Uh
Some of them are really bad, like Blissey EX and like Tinkaton. You know, I love Tinkaton.
huh.
But I did have my Rhydons and my Raikus and my Iron Hands in this stack. And I packed them into my bag as I left. I came back to grab my phone charger and my Rhydon cards, just in case I wanted to play it, because I know Sejun Park had played it in a couple of Limitless events, and he did pretty well with it, and I was pretty sure that Miraidon was a really good play for this weekend, just because it does have a pretty good Lugia matchup as a good Raging Bolt's not terrible, and I think they're, as we saw, the Drago matchup's actually pretty favorable too. So I did have that as a backup besides Zard, but I didn't pull the trigger on that one.
Right, yeah, definitely. But yeah, it's such a it's just, good deck at the moment. So, all right.
The deck with a lot of good abilities, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, so moving on. Round 6 and 7. Round 6, you go against a person named Gunner.
Yeah, Gunner was on Art of War Drifloon, which I didn't expect to see a whole lot of in the tournament. Before we started, we did Gentlemen's to, like, if we got to game 3 and we wanted to avoid a tie, we'd go on board state, or we went on prizes for this one. So whoever was ahead on prizes in game 3 would end up the winner. So game 1 was pretty standard stuff. Like, they set up their Curlias, I set up my Charizards and Pidgeot, and we kind of started trading 2 for 2. I was able to get ahead in that matchup, but just by chasing Guardies and like making sure Curlias stayed dead. So I won game 1. Game 2, they had a pretty good setup of like 5 energy and discard turn 2. Basically one-shot my Charizard, setting up damage with Monkey Dory onto the other Charizard. So I just kind of scooped game 2, and I had maybe about 15 minutes going into game 3. And I just kind of played as fast as I could, just because I know my opponent wasn't playing slow, but Guardy takes a lot of time to like search the deck and refinement and all that stuff. So I didn't even prize check, and I just knew if I just prize raced them, I'm pretty sure I end up winning anyways. Especially because we have the Gentleman's Agreement. So that's kind of what happened. I ended up winning in +3 turns, but we did have that Gentleman's, and I was, I think, 2 prizes ahead anyways, where my opponent wouldn't be able to catch up. So
now, when
really good game, really close game. Yeah.
I was gonna say, so did you talk about, did he ask and you asked what decks you're playing, like before Gentlemen's, or you just said Gentlemen's and then, okay, this is what it is?
Yeah, I didn't ask about what they're playing. I just agreed to it, just
Okay.
because I know that like we really couldn't afford a tie.
True.
We could afford a tie, still we couldn't afford a loss.
True. Yeah, that's true. Okay, cool. Okay, round 7, Christopher, Shirley.
Christopher was another Miraidon player. This time they played a couple of interesting cards. They ended up playing like the Metal Energy for the Pikachu and the Grass.
Okay.
Not something that I had seen in any other Miraidon lists.
Right.
And I don't know, it was not quite as consistent as the previous Miraidon deck. But they were able to get the Topaz Bolt off, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
But of course, Charizard has 330 HP, so it lived through that. But I also couldn't respond to the Pikachu because I didn't have any Dust Clops in play, or Dust Skulls in play. So I did end up 2-shotting it, or setting up a play where I took the 4-prize turn the next turn. So the ability, was it Resolute Heart or something like that, or no?
Yeah,
I
Define.
don't know what the ability's called.
Define Heart, I would say.
That's Phantom Regiment.
That's right. You're right.
I'm not sure what the ability's called, but I did end up having to play around it, and I ended up taking 4-prize turns, which I think was a little bit better for me, just because I didn't activate Pheasantipity for them. But those are pretty quick too.
Resolute Heart. It's Resolute Heart.
And what is, I don't know, what is Radiant Charizard's ability called?
I
Sorry,
think
I'm like sidetracked.
it's I want to say Excited Heart.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a pretty quick 2-0. Just because, like I said, the Miraidon matchup was pretty favorable, and the list wasn't as consistent as the previous Miraidon player.
I'm very curious if you ran that stadium that for stage 2 that minus the HP is at 30 or 20. I forgot that mountain. I forgot what it's called. Like,
Yeah, the gravity, whatever.
yeah.
Uh,
I,
I don't think they did. I think they just played the Area Zero under depths.
oh, that's true. The 0 under. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but interesting. I know. I know it makes more sense for Lost Box with the for the Pikachu attack because you can just get it from Mirage Gate, but that one, wow. I wonder if they even played an Earthen Vessel to get the energy, but interesting. So, oh well.
I did see a Crispin in their opening hand when they mulligan.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So that was one way to get it powered up, I guess.
God, Crispin. That's crazy. That's like interesting. And yeah, especially the locals. I think we talked about this. Like Crispin on Iron Thorns too. Like so
I did get bodied by Crispin Iron Thorns
HTS Cup.
Yeah.
So it does have its work. So all right. So at that point, at round 7, you're pretty much sitting pretty good because at that point you're like, well, ID and you're in pretty much. So that's when you just kind of got matched up. When you saw Jared Grimes, you're hoping that he would ID with you, right? I mean, because were you hoping that he was going to ID, or you thought he had you thought he was going to be playing against you or play it out? How were you feeling? Or
yeah, talking to Dylan and Ozzy and Alejandro, like if my opponent wants to ID, I'm cool with it. If they want to play it out, I'm also cool with it. Like playing it out was the better option of the two, just because it gives you a better chance at top cut. But I wasn't opposed to IDing either, just because like I never knew who my opponent was going into it until I saw their name. So like if they're excited for their first day 2, or if they want to get day 2, or I'm not going to take that away from them. When I did see it was Jared Grimes, I was like, oh, okay, I know Jared, pretty prolific Chien-Pao player. I doubt he was playing that at this tournament, but it's kind of his bread and butter. Also, like the inventor of PokeStats Live when that was still a thing, as well as TrainingCore.app. So does a lot of good work for the community. So when I got to the table, he actually offered me the ID, and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, that's fine. And then we got to talk a bit. I waited for our match slip, so that was kind of cool. Jared did do a limitless check on me and did ask about some of the weird decks that I saw on my limitless page, like Arceus Charizard with Course Experiment. And,
oh my god.
Darkrai V-Star with Picnic Basket. Like, why would I play those cards in the deck? So we talked about that for a bit. And of course, I took him through my favorite deck, Urshifu's Abstrika. Even though it's not on the list.
God. I'm sure he was like, how the hell did you day 2 with this NIC?
Yeah. So we're both just looking at the list that we both played and like talking about our matchups throughout the day. And like he showed me his TrainingCore.app log of who he played and that sort of thing. So it's pretty cool to get to talk to him, get to know him a little bit. Just kind of talk about some of the stupid decks that we've played in the past.
That's cool. Cool. Wow. So at that point you just like turn in your slip. And what time was that when it was finished? Around 6 o'clock, you say? Around 7, 6?
Yeah, 6 or 6:30 around there. We kind of hung out for a bit just to see final standings. I think Dylan was also playing his last round. So we waited for him to go eat. Overall, like the 8 rounds, we finished pretty early for the most part. It does get super dark in California, I guess, during this time of the year. So around like 4:30, it was already dark outside. So at 6:30, it was like basically it was night.
Wow, that's crazy. So yeah. So and to anyone that's new to the regional scene, when you do make day 2, you don't have to turn your deck, or there could be a deck check, right? But they don't ask you to turn. You kind of keep your decks until like top 8 at a regionals that you do turn in your deck, and they kind of inspect it and whatnot. Or it's kind of very similar to a cup in that sense. But when you make day 2, you still keep your deck. And I mean, what report time was 8:30 in the morning for you, pretty much?
Yeah.
Yeah, 8:30. So, but yeah. So Billy makes day 2. And then we go on to day 2, and he goes against round 9, gets Chris Stotz. against Reggie, I guess. Reggie Drago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there's another opponent who did ask about gentlemen's before we started.
Okay.
So, or no, it was not before we started. It was after game one. He was like, "Yeah, I should have asked before we started, but do you want a gentleman's if we get to game 3? Blah 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 blah." Right? But he wanted to do board state. So game one, I kind of just, I don't want to say steamrolled him, but it was pretty bad.
Okay.
Oh no, actually, I was getting beat up pretty bad. I got Kirim turn 2.
Ooh.
Kind of wiped my board, but I was kind of expecting it. I gave him the choice of like, do you go Phantom Dive, knock out my Charmander Pidgey, or do you go Kirim, knock out Charmander Pidgey Charmander, right? So I had preemptively attached to Radiant Charizard, expecting him to take the prize turn. And from there, it was kind of like Iono into Radiant Zard into set up a second Charizard. And then from there, he had to expend his V-Star to get out of that. And then, again, Ion him low and just kind of run him out of resources. So that's how I won game 1. Game 2, I got bodied by Canceling Cologne, Manaphy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, I scooped up game 2 pretty quick. In game 3, since we're going on board state, I tried to get as far ahead as I could. Again, I got Kirim'd. I was able to recover with the Thornton. This is where like Thornton was the goat here.
Okay.
Able to recover my Pidgeot and set up Charizard. And then we got to time. I think I was at 1 prize left, and my opponent was at 2. And he was turn 3 and had to get knockout on Charizard to win the game. If not, then we'd go for the gentleman's and talk about board state. So I ended up whiffing the knockout on the Charizard. And had to expend his last energy switch at that point, along with the V-Star the turn before. So we got to that time, and then the judges came up, asked us, what turn we are, and all that sort of thing. We started talking about the board state, and like he thinks he can win with Gust, Serendipity with the Radzar, which is true. He could have the next turn. But I also had Turo in hand plus Countercatcher, and then I just removed the last 2 energy off his board. And then he realized that he was out of energy switches and wouldn't be able to respond to that, and decided to concede at that point. So I respect him for committing to the gentleman's and I don't say give me the win, but like honoring the agreement that we had. So that was really cool about that.
Yeah, and to anyone that's I know Billy kind of explained the gentleman's, but just understand that there's been times, not with Billy, but just people in general, that people like say it and then they back out on it, like they don't follow through, and that's perfectly that's, I don't want to say like you can do that because it's non-Pokemon related, that's why it's called gentleman's, but it's just frowned upon because you decided to do gentleman's, and then I mean you have every right to back out on it, but in this case Billy's opponent did follow through with it, because if it has not been in Billy's favor, then Billy would have honored it. So
yeah, exactly.
So
and I knew like if they hit the double grassy switch or whatever was the end of that turn, like I just lose the game anyways. I did keep track of the resources, so when the judges did come up to us, as was like find the slip, we both had the information we needed to make the decision.
Yeah,
it's a little bit weird like discussing that in front of the head judge, but it is what it is, right? Like
right. Yeah. And to anyone that wishes to do gentlemen's, like at stuff like that, I highly advise that you kind of practice your sequencing and kind of know what you're doing, because if you do gentlemen's and then like you're telling your opponent like, and your opponent's kind of like, okay, I don't think you have the win, then they might even back out because maybe you don't know what you're talking about in a sense. So please make sure you do practice like that part, the sequencing and your line of plays, and make sure you're very clear about your line of plays and having those cards to your opponent. So
I also know, like, one thing I mentioned, just like knowing what resources you have left and what resources your opponent has left. It's like I knew my opponent was out of E-Switch. I knew that they only had the 1 fire. They put back 3 grass, which is fine. But I knew like if I took this knockout next turn, there was no way for them to attack me at all. besides Radiant Charizard, which could knock out anything, because I had the Turo and the Counter Catcher in hand. But when he mentioned that, I was like, oh no, I showed him the Turo. I could quick search for the Counter Catcher because I knew it was in deck. And at that point, he's like, yeah, he got it. I was like, okay, cool.
Cool. Awesome.
But we wouldn't have got to that if I didn't know what resources he had used and what resources I had used already.
Right. And again, it's got to know, information, discard piles so much valuable, and price checking too, right? But it's good to know information, your opponent's information, yours. So, okay. So after that, round 10, Benjamin dropped you dropped that match against him, and he was running Terrapedos, Pidgeot, Noctowl. That's what it's.
Yeah, Terrapedos, Pidgeot, Noctowl, Dusknoir. I played Benjamin. I think this is the third time we played recently. Played him at Sacramento last year. I played him at San Antonio last year, and then again now Sacramento. He kind of bodied me both games. I'm not gonna lie.
Wow. Okay.
I really, I was playing the Bufflant build of Terrapagos, so I really didn't have a way to one-shot Terrapagos. He played Pendy and was able to pick stuff up, and then Dusknoir my Charizard, blow it up, and then from there I was like, I still can't respond to this Terrapagos because it has effectively 290 HP. At least until they take extra prizes, right? But they played it really smartly and just kind of picked apart my board and then blew me up. So I lost pretty quickly that round.
Wow. Yeah, and looking at his record, he seemed to be the most skilled player I've ever won, going 9-2-1. So he went pretty deep. So.
Yeah, I think at San Antonio also he maybe top 16 or top 32.
Oh wow.
I don't remember how he did in Sacramento. But every time I played him, it's been really close games, except for this time. He's a really chill dude, makes a lot of funny content on Twitter. It's those videos of people in the card shop. Really funny guy, very outgoing, talks super fast.
And where's he from?
I've asked him this 3 times and I don't remember.
Okay.
I think in the Iowa area. I'm making that up. I don't know. Okay.
Well, when you do see him at San Antonio, day 2, you can ask him. You can ask him again since you've already seen him multiple times. So okay, cool. And then 11, round 11. I'm not going to even pronounce this name.
I'm not going to try to pronounce it either. My opponent was playing Raging Bolt.
Okay.
Which, for the most part, is a pretty good matchup into Charizard, or for Charizard. So, once they take 2 prizes, you kind of one-shot everything. I did play the Bravery Charm build, and I also played a Vacuum, which is pretty interesting. So they're able to get rid of my Jamming Tower during game 2. I believe they played Vacuum. Game 1 went you expected. I just kind of got ahead and stayed ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Game 2, I ended up having to Rotom 3-4 turns in a row and fell behind too far to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And then game 3, my opponent had a very awkward start with their hand. Had Squawkabilly, some key resources, couldn't really draw into Sada. Sometimes Raging Bolt does that. And I was able to win off a 3-prize turn with Dusknoir and Briar. So that was pretty sick, actually. But yeah, for the most part, the matchup went as you would expect. Game 2 was kind of awkward, but my opponent played it pretty well.
So, when you go against, as a Zark player, when you go against Raging Bolt, you don't bother evolving until you have to, right? For, you said he took out 2 prices, right? So you fed him single prices, or?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I just fed him Duskulls, because you don't really need Duskull in the matchup that often.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you want to go Dusclops and get yourself to 290 or 300, I guess. So I just fed him 1 prizers. I fed him Duskull, I fed him a Charmander, and then go out to Charizard, knock out, and then knock out with Radiant Zard, and then knock out with Charizard, or vice versa. However you want to do that.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You got to remember, with Raging Bolts, they hardly play any Gust because they're just gonna blow up anything what's in front of it, So.
When I did play Pokemon Catcher and did flip 3 tails, I think, but
oh, that's right, they did play that, yeah.
Yeah,
they do.
But I don't think it really would have mattered because I didn't really have 2 prizes on the bench besides Pidgeot, which the trade-off would have been the same. I would still attack with Radzard the next turn.
Mm-hmm. True. So, All right, cool. And then last round against Jacob, running Lost Box.
Yep. That was a Lost Box Pikachu.
Okay.
Which I think is favored in, or no, I think Charizard's favored into Lost Box just because you have so much HP. But having the Pikachu also gives you the ability to just one-shot a Charizard after a Sableye spread, which is really annoying, actually. You really can't get there with Ursaluna. So game one, I won pretty handedly, just setting up Charizard Pidgeot, and like they had to like 3 or 4 shot my Charizard at that point. They had some unfortunate flower selectings where they had to get rid of either Pikachu or Blood Moon.
Ooh.
And they chose Pikachu, and I was able to respond to that pretty well. And then game one took a while. Game two, we had maybe like 20 minutes left on the clock. We were going back and forth. Pretty close game. At the end of the game, I needed to hit Arvin off of something. I think it was Lumineon or Forest Stone, one of those two. I ended up prizing my last Arvin, so I couldn't get into another Charizard when I needed to close out game two. So my opponent was able to respond with another Pikachu at the last second and take their last 2 prizes. So we ended up finishing the game at 1-1, and then time was called, so we didn't start game 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But my opponent played it well. You know, they did Sableye spread 30 on each Zard, and like take out my Pidgey or whatever with the Sableye to be able to set up for the Topaz bolts with Pikachu, which ended up winning them in game 2.
Oh, okay. How do you feel about? I know you have Dusknoir, but how do you feel about some of these builds? At least I've seen on the locals running Halucha to counter the Pikachu. Do you think it's worth that or not really? You know, for the pings, I guess.
I do think you should have a answer to Pikachu, whether it be canceling Cologne or a Dusknoir or a Lucha. I think currently Zard, I think you probably fine with just the Dusclops or the Dusknoir.
Right.
If Pikachu becomes more prevalent, you might want to add back the canceling Cologne at some point. I don't know if Halucha would be worth it currently, though.
Yeah.
Unless there's some other math where it also would help out, like maybe against Drago. Actually, that could work. Where you normally hitting 270, where you can actually hit the 280.
I know Lugia has been running that stadium to increase the HP, and then like because of the attacking sequence, like it's perfect where they can just swing and then remove the stadium, and then it dies because the HP.
Yeah,
Okay.
where the lively stadium or whatever.
Yeah, lively stadium. So
yeah,
so I guess
that could work too. I'm not sure if Lugia like wants to be fighting that matchup either way, right? Whether it be lost or Miraidon. So
yeah.
I don't know if we're tech for it with Lugia.
Yeah. So okay, so at that point, you tied, and then I believe, what was your final ranking then? I know Alejandro's 135. You're kind of close to him, right? Like 138 or?
I think in the original standings I was 142. I think maybe there might have been 2 DQs because I ended up 140th overall.
Ha! And that was what, worth half a box, right? A Surging Sparks.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Which probably is gold right now, because at least in the locals, there's not any Surging Sparks. Like, I guess everyone's trying to chase that holy Pikachu. So
I know. And Jesse Spencer from San Antonio walked up to me during, I think, top 4 finals of the stream setup. Knowing that he pulled a Pikachu in his half a box, I was like, huh.
Of course.
Yeah.
Did what's his name? Did he get to go? Aiden? They didn't get to go?
Aiden was not there, no.
Really? Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was just from San Antonio. I think it was just Jesse and Mitch who won one of our cups, or no, got second at a cup.
Oh, okay.
Was it 3 weekends ago? Whatever. The cloth player.
Yeah. No, he won the cup at Moonblast. If that's Mitch.
Okay.
Yeah, he won.
Yeah, Mitch was there as well.
Oh, okay. Cool. What did he play? Did he play cloth?
I believe so. I did ask him. I just can't remember.
Yeah. Cool. So, and after that point, you just pretty much got dinner, of course, and then did you fly back Sunday or Monday?
Flew back Monday.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Okay, and yeah, I'm sure you took that day off from work and just traveled. And you flew out of Harlingen, I'm assuming, right? Flew in.
Yes.
Cool, cool. So yeah, but so overall, Billy makes day two and talked about his matchups and his deck list. So and at this point, the next regionals is what, San Antonio, right? That's pretty much where you plan. Is there any more regionals you're going or ICs that you plan to go?
I do plan on doing San Antonio, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at going to Toronto. Maybe, I doubt it. But I might try for Vancouver. I think they finally released like Atlanta also, or like posted it. So I'll probably do Atlanta, and then I think there's one more North American regional. I'm hoping it's Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that last one is, I might try to go to as well. But I do plan on going to EUIC once those registrations open and that sort of thing.
Nice. Now UIC is cheaper than LIC, right? Is that what I'm understanding? Like we've had this discussion.
Yeah.
It still baffles me, but it does make sense. It does make sense.
Yeah, the flight to London's a lot cheaper than the flight to Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're in those places, like I'm sure the food and lodging in Brazil is cheaper than
Right.
it would be in London, but I don't know if it's cheap enough to offset that initial cost of the flights.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, I think last year for EOIC, I mean, I spent a pretty penny just to get there and stay there, but I don't know if the total cost for my EUIC trip would have been
Mm-hmm.
more than my flights to Brazil, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in closing thoughts, for the locals, because I'm sure they're curious, how do you feel about the meta moving forward? Like, I guess Reggie Drago, is that still going to be BDIF pretty much, or is Miraidon taking over?
I think Drago is still probably the best deck currently. Miraidon does have a very strong Drago matchup. Locally, we don't have a bunch of Drago players. I know we have maybe like a couple, maybe three. But I could see them leaning more towards maybe Bolt or Miraidon, just because those decks are a little bit I don't say more linear, but like the way you play them is a lot less difficult. Not less difficult. I don't know the word I'm looking for. Like Drago gives you so many options to choose from, whereas Miraidon and Bolt simplify the game for you a little bit.
Right.
It makes it easier to win with, I feel like. So I expect locally we'll probably see still the same amount of Bolt, probably an uptick into Miraidon. We'll probably see a bit of the Lost Box players who played Lost Box previously maybe start picking it up again.
Yep, that's true. And I don't mean to put her on blast, but Tony went back to Lost Box as soon as she could, play it. Because I forgot that weekend when you all were out, we had a league challenge at Moonblast. I mean, not Moonblast, sorry, Kaboom. And yeah, Tony was on the Lost Box. Juan Redar was playing the Reggie Drago. So and then this past Tuesday I played Miraidon against another Reggie Drago, and yeah, you're right. Like I had an easier time. It was his game to win, and it was interesting because he had a fully powered up Reggie Drago in front of me, and I was like, how do I get rid of this? Oh, Magneton, awesome. But he had told me that he's like, man, I should have, because he did have the Dragon Bolt in the discard pile, so he had told me like, oh, my misplay was if I just killed the Magnemite. He had pinged all the other two prizers, but he's like, but yeah, the Magnite was the bigger threat because that allowed me to get more energy to Raichu him. So yeah, you're right. Like I think Reggie Drago is still a strong deck and probably good against Miraidon if you can see the line of play. As compared to us, we're just like, okay, bring that up, two prize, boom, like bear, boom.
Yep.
So
I think I think Charizard should be probably more played. I don't know if people will actually pick it up locally. The deck is really strong currently in the format. So keep that in mind as you plan for your challenges. And I think we have one more cup in the valley, and then I think Corpus is having a back-to-back maybe.
Yeah, I believe this weekend. And then there's a league challenge at the Pocket this Friday or tomorrow pretty much. So, but yeah, and then I was going to say, and I don't know. I guess it's just a local thing, but Goldango, man, like it just there's always those that it's like the cult of Goldangos. Like they just Brownsville has a couple Goldango players. McAllen does, and then I mean at Stronghold Tuesday, Ozzy. Ozied was like, "Hey, got any Goldingos?" I'm like, "Yeah, here." I gave him mine. I'm like, "I'm not gonna play it, but take it." So
I did pick up 2 more Goldangos, and I did pay $1 for gimme goals while I was over there, just because the deck is kind of funny. Like drawing cards is always fun, and having just like the one-shot potential of Energy Search Pro
yes,
is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's just a funny deck, like
yeah. Yeah. And I guess the last question for me at least, how do you feel about the other Reggies? Like I saw a list that played the basic Reggies, that Reggie line with the trolley and all that, and then Pikachu's. Like, how do you feel about that deck making a comeback? Where Reggie go?
I wouldn't put too much faith into it. It's more like I know it did make day 2, right?
Right.
It's kind of a more fun deck. I just don't think you can keep up with some of the more prominent threats in the format, like Drago, like Charizard, probably even Bolt. I don't know. I kind of look at what their attackers are, but like, I don't know if baby Reggies can deal with those. Like 2 of the top 3 decks, and I think I'd probably gatekeep it for a little bit until something changes in the meta.
That's true, and I mean, I forget that the main one, what Reggie Gigas, right? Is that the one that only swings hard if there's a VMAX in play, and like there's no VMAXs, like unless like somebody runs an outdated Miraidon list with Reggie Lecky VMAX, But yeah, that's true. When you kind of think about it, I did see it online. I'm like, hey, this looks cool. Like, interesting, But then when you kind of think about it and what you just said, like, yeah, it's just an anomaly then.
Yeah, so. Like Topaz Bolt's a really cool attack, and so is Pikachu's ability. But I don't know if it's completely worth building a deck around it that doesn't have other attackers. Whereas like Lost Box, you get that same 300 damage attack, but you get also Radiant Greninja to attack, and you get Amaranth, you get all this other cool stuff. So and one deck I kind of hope would do better is Hydreigon, but that has been a disappointment so far.
Sad. No wonder I picked them up pretty cheap right now. I got 3 of them. Like, hey, this is cool, but then okay, never mind. Yeah, I've seen people. I know Adrian Enriquez was testing it and a couple others, but I guess I'll still dabble into it. And then I guess, how do you feel? Last question is, how do you feel about the, your favorite Pokemon, Darkrai, coming back? Because it is kind of getting popular in the locals. I know there's a lot of people for Snorlax reasons, but
yeah, true, right? Like Jesus did play it at the HTS Cup.
Remy was playing. Remy was playing it too.
Yeah, and if Snorlax continues to dominate our local meta, I could probably see more of those dark decks like Moon or just Moon Pecharunt or Darkrai Pecharunt being pretty good. It just kind of depends if Sub wants to continue playing Snorlax too.
Yeah.
Which I think was a really good play for this weekend, and we talked about it a lot, like what matchups are kind of free and which ones are kind of auto losses, and choosing which ones you're okay taking losses to, like Lugia, because I didn't expect it to be that popular. So, gotta respect Snorlax, people.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, everyone, that kind of wraps it up for this episode and this interview with Billy. Thank you for tuning in and listening. And pretty much the next time I do something like this, it probably will be discussion of our top players, because everyone's been crying about that. And literally, yeah, like, every time somebody wins, it's like, hey, am I going to be on that list? And it's like, God, like, and I mean, good. I'm glad they have the energy, but it's, Adrian Garcia, Victor, all those cats, man. Just like every time they win, it's like the validation is needed. I'm like, oh my God. And it'll continue. So, but Yeah, so but that'll be for another time in discussion, especially the way the leaderboards is right now. It's like, I don't know, like I've been thinking about and this is kind of old school, but maybe a list, right? But or maybe just go by each player that we know and then give them a tier, like, like S tier. You remember that when we talked about that with Mark? He's like,
Yeah.
Mark would be like, "What tier am I at, Billy?" And it took Mark. I don't know. Maybe that was the sauce to get Mark into a nationalist runner-up, a finalist, to because at that point, then he reached S tier, But like every time he would ask, and you'd be like, "Oh, A tier," and or no, he's B tier, like and then I mean, no offense to Ray, but it's like Ray, like, oh, F tier, jokingly, right? But
No. God.
nah, just kidding. Poor guy, man. No. He's done all right. He's done well. So Pobrecito, he's gonna hear this like, fuck you, Kevin. But yeah. So, anyways,
No,
yeah.
I mean, it's cool to have a motivation that's not just winning games, but
Right.
at the end of the day, you just got to play a lot more games than you think you need to play, and test more than you think you need to test to actually accomplish whatever goals you might have. So I know it doesn't seem like I play good decks all the time, but when I do play, I'm playing to win, and I think that's just kind of the mentality you have to
Right.
have to
Right.
be successful.
You're right. Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is, like, I talked about that with Alejandra. Like, we talked about you. It's like, yeah, Billy. If Billy knows your deck better than you, and he's playing a jank deck, and he's telling you like, why didn't you and all that, then that's a big tell that you should probably continue practicing or not. Because it does happen a lot. That you play against somebody and then you ask them like, oh, just why didn't you, or like, oh, I'm just curious why, and or you view a game and then you seem to know more of a better line of play than the person playing it. And it just depends, like you said. If the person's competitive, awesome, then take advantage of it. If they're not, then well, okay, cool, then keep at it then, and like Pokemon, because it's not for everybody. I understand that, but so all right, everyone. Well, that will be it for today. Have a good one. We'll see y'all later, and take care.